Hello all you Pixel people, I am Pixel and welcome back to the Project Spark tutorial series. This is episode 2 and where we left off we had built this basic land. We basically went through all the actual building options which you see on this side over here, and we ended up with this. We looked at the expansion tool, the subtracting tool and all that kind of jazz, and we made a basic world. But the whole idea of this series is we're going to be making a first person horror game, kind of like Slender or Amnesia in many respects. So what we're going to do in this episode is work towards actually creating a first person camera and a first person movement set rather than the traditional third person like so. So this is what we normally play like, which is cool, but I don't know, it just doesn't feel quite as scary, and it's just not where we want to be honest. So we're going to go back to edit, and we're going to start off by selecting this prop icon in the bottom left just above my face, and then we're going to find our character, click on him, and then grab the flame and drag him, and we're going to keep dragging him till we get him onto this hill. And the reason why we're putting on the hill is it's a little bit brighter, we can see a little bit easier, and you just want to make it as easy as possible. You don't want to have to be looking around every time you want to get to your main character. So then we zoom in. Now, by default, you click on this brain icon once you've got your character selected, and you see all the options which come with it, and it can be quite scary to see this. It looks like, oh, look how complicated this is. You've got all these different options, hits and detects and button presses for attacks and health systems, and it looks confusing. There is two ways we can do this. I'm going to show you the very easy way, but it's not as good, and then I'm going to show you the more complex way. So we start off by clicking on this green icon. Well, it's blue. It turns green when you put your mouse over it, which is the brain. And click on first person shooter. Boom. Now all this has changed. And now, when we click on play, first person camera, done. We've got basic WASD movements. Got a jump, we've even got a fire, but it's horror game. We don't want to be able to shoot stuff, do we really? We may be able to incorporate that at some point. Maybe at the end you get a weapon and kill whatever's trying to kill you or whatever, but in general no. So this works, but let's just show you what we don't need from this, because like I said, we're not going to be shooting stuff. So if we come down to here, it is if X or right trigger or left mouse, shoot. And because they are, well, basically, the further inwards the when is what it's. How do I explain this easily? Basically, the further it is in, it runs after the one which is out to the next time. So this is still part of this line. Basically, it's a way of doing it on lines. I suppose that's the best way to explain it. So we can actually just delete this by going over it, over the number, and pressing the delete key. We don't need the detect stuff. We can put that in later ourselves. What else don't we need? We don't need to put us in a team. We don't need a throw limit. We can keep our health on screen. We can keep our movement, and we can keep our jump. And now we've stripped this down to pure basics. There's no shooting. There's no detection. We've just got a basic first-person camera. However, in the interest of trying to teach you guys a little bit, what we're going to do is go into the brain. I'm going to start completely over. Delete everything. And the reason we're doing this is because we're actually going to make something which is a lot more complicated than the original or the default first-person shooter. We're going to be adding sprint. We're going to be adding movement. We're going to be adding crouching eventually. We're going to have a stamina bar. So it's so far away from the original that it's almost not worth keeping the original. So what we're going to do to start off with is really easily is click on the first do, and we're going to click on this little arrow here, which will take us to the next set of options. These are all the options that you can stick into the code. Some of them open up additional groups of options, and it does seem like a lot at first, but you'll be honestly you'll be surprised how quick you get into it. So we're going to click on camera, and then first person camera. Right? Actually, no, let's delete this first. I want to show you quickly. Like, we deleted everything. Everything's gone. So when we click play, nothing. That's it. Okay? Now, if we click on edit again, go to the brain, do find the camera. Oops, I misclicked. Find the camera, click on the camera, first person camera, back, test it again. There we go, we've got a first person camera. We've still got no movement ability or jump or crouch or anything, but we've already got our first person camera, which is cool. So now what we're going to do is add movement, and the way that we do that is we need to detect controls, and the way we detect controls is very simple. On the when side, basically the do will not do anything until the when is achieved. So if I said, like, let's do a real life example. If I said, when you go to the shop, get me a Mars bar or a chocolate bar, you can't get me a chocolate bar without going to the shop. So you need to go to the shop before you can actually do it. Probably a really bad example, but that's exactly what it is. So when controls, and we're doing it on keyboard and mouse, but we are going to use the Xbox controller because a lot of people will be playing this on Xbox. So make sure that you actually do both sets of controls. So I'll show you how we do this now. First off, we'll start off with the controller, and we want to be moving with the left thumbstick. So we click left stick. When left stick is moved, basically. But then what we're also going to do is under, I think it's timing and logic, there'll be a or, and or an or. So an and would mean it has to be the left stick plus a button. The or means it can either be the left stick or a button. And we're going to do or. We go into controls again, keyboard, WASD, simple, do, movement, move. So I'll show you that again. Movement, move. Test that again. We are already making progress. We're able to walk around this world. Right? Cool. Edit again. Click. Go to our brain. And now we're going to add the jump command. So what we're going to do for jump is exactly the same as we did with the whens for the movement. We do when, controls. Now, I'm assuming on an Xbox controller you would normally jump with A, because it's the bottom button, right? Yep. So A, or, and on the keyboard, you'd use spacebar. I'll point something out in a second. I just want to explain something, just so you know. Press any key when you click to choose a key, space. So now that's if I press A on the controller or space, I will not do anything yet, but now I will movement, jump. Boom, done. Okay, so we'll test that out. I can move, nice and easy, and I can jump. And to show you on the controller, I can jump. Right, now what is interesting, and it can trip you up a little bit because you end up doing a little bit more than what you have to, but I'm going to recommend you do this anyway. You don't, if I remove this A from here and the or, and it was just space to jump, I would not be able to press A on the controller to jump. However, if I remove or and space, because of default bindings, I can still jump with spacebar. A and space are linked, apart from only when it comes to the controller function. So I would definitely recommend that you always put in your normal controls as well, even though you don't have to. Just to be doubly safe. You don't want to get into bad habits and all that. So we'll put this in again. So logic and timing, or controls, keyboard, and create a key press, space. There we go. So now we've got the basics. This is this is the basics for moving and jumping. What else do we need? We're going to add a sprint functionality. We're going to do that now. We are going to do stamina in a separate video, which will be the next video up, because it takes a little bit of time and it's a little bit more advanced, and some people will not be interested in having stamina. So it's a waste of time forcing it down your guys' throats if you're not interested. So edit again. Now, oh, got a bit lost there. Let's pull me back into my main character. Bang. Brain. And for this, it gets a little bit more complicated because there's no standard way of doing this. Oh, wait. I'm just thinking, if I do the sprint first and then backtrack to... We'll do the speed modifications right now because this is a horror game. We don't want to be running around as fast as what this character was default. Could you imagine going that fast and sprinting? So what we're going to do is click on the one, insert, which means it'll add another lot of boxes. And then what we're going to do right at the start is come into timing and logic again. And now there'll be this little one called once. Now this is a very important little operator because this means that only once ever will it run this line of code. So this is perfect for adding variables. Variables are basically data values inside a container. It sounds more complicated than it actually is. And what we're going to do for the first once is we're going to reduce the movement speed. So we are going to do movement properties on land speed equals, now I can't remember, I think this may be defaulted to 5. It's a little bit confusing because certain commands have different default sets and you really need to experiment. So we're going to experiment. I think it's set to 5, but we'll see if I was right or wrong when we test it in a second. So number, if it was set to 5, we want to half it. So we're going to go to, should we go, no, we'll go further down than half. We'll go to 0.2. On land speed equals 0.2, so this will be affected. The jump won't be affected, and that's an issue that we'll sort out next. But movement speed will be affected, so... Okay, it might be 10. That is very slow. Talk about horror, it'd be horrible just playing that. Okay, so that was definitely wrong, so maybe... Oh no, if it's default, it's 5, we want it on 2, right? Oops. Not 0.2. Is that what I did wrong? I wanted it on 2, not 0.2. So, now if you listen very carefully, you'll hear my footsteps. Now this is a concern. And the reason I can show you this, why it's a concern, is if we just come to this first person camera section, if we click on the when bit, we can do timing and logic again and go to ignore line, which means it will not turn to a first person camera ever. And we can test it. So basically it just stays in this view so I can test it. And if you look, the character's walking really fast. Well, it appears to be walking really fast because the way that a camera is set up isn't really realistic. You wouldn't... A human being does not walk that fast. His feet are touching the floor far too fast. And it's giving this really strange illusion in the ear that is basically sprinting. So what we're going to do for that is we've got 2 options. Now these 2 options are we can increase this to 2.5, which we can't do, so we have to go to click on create a new number if it's not in the list, and just click 2.5. Now this might be enough to do it. Now we click play now. In this view, he's jogging. View's a little bit faster, but because he's jogging, the footsteps are spread wider apart, and it'll sound better in first person. If we just do that now to show you, the first person should sound a fair bit better. So we delete the ignore line, so now it'll go to first person mode. Click play. It sounds better. It's still a little bit fast, but it's not too bad. I don't know if we're walking a little bit too fast. It really depends how big you set your game up in the world. Like, this feels quite slow, but don't forget there's going to be a sprint function as well. People are going to be sprinting a lot, so maybe what we have to do is slow it down even more, maybe to a 1 speed and have 2.5. Is this too fast for a... This is too slow for a sprint. Too slow for a sprint, but too fast for a walk. There is one more option, which we'll do that option now just to demonstrate. And as you can see, if I jump, I'm jumping far too high and far too fast. But what we're going to do to fix this is we are going to change movement stuff. We want I'm just getting lost. That's what we want. We want to leave that as that. And then we want to insert another line here, which is above this. And then we're going to click on this little line again to put it underneath, so it runs only once, because it still classes the same grouping. And now we're going to do appearance pace equals... I have no idea what this is set to by default, so we're just going to have to play it by ear. I'm assuming the pace is set to 1 by default. Well, let's try 1, and if it's the same, I was right. Yeah, so it's set to 1 by default. So if we set this now to 0.5 and set this back, actually 0.5, right, yeah, let's see how this goes. Now, I don't know, this is a little bit too slow in my opinion. But with a sprint function, I don't know. Let's try 0.75 with the pace, just to experiment. So, there's no 0.75. Nope, so we have to create it. New number, 0.75. Play. In. Okay, now what pace does is I'll explain this. It's not the same as movement speed. Pace is the animation speed and the overall speed in which a character moves and stuff like that. It's basically a little bit of everything. So if we go back to the brain again and turn off this first person camera once again using the ignore line function, what we'll see is I'm just basically going a little bit slow motion. This would be an issue if it wasn't in first person, obviously, but because we are in first person, we're not going to see our own character and his animations don't really matter. If you was trying to create a realistic first person camera where you actually put the camera inside his head, then you could have a few issues, but I have experimented a little bit and it doesn't seem very practical at the moment. Maybe later on down the line. So right now it doesn't matter. We're more focusing on getting these footstep sounds far enough apart while having the movement speed around where we want it, and this seems to be working. I mean, jump is still a bit crazy. I mean, look how high this guy's jumping. I mean, he'll give Michael Jordan a run for his money, this guy. And what we're going to do next is sort out that side of things. And the way we're going to do that is by seeing where it says jump. Actually, no, we're not. We're going to do it up here. We're going to do another once. So, inset again. Or inset. I keep saying inset because I'm thinking I'm insetting the line. But it's insert and inset. And then we're going to do jump. I mean, movement. Movement properties. Jump. And then we're going to do jump height. And jump height will equal, and I'm not sure on what the default is. I'm assuming it's going to be 1. Well, we'll try. If I put it on 2, well, I'll do super jumps. Looks like it might have been set on 2. No. Okay, so 0.5. 0.5 will be perfect. I'm assuming. I hope. 0.5. It looks odd, but in first person it should look okay. And we'll test that now. So edit. Brain. Delete the ignore line so we go back into first person mode. Click play. We speed up a little bit, but I quite like the fact that you can jump a little bit. When we sprint, we'll have to do some more modifications to the jump. Otherwise, it's going to slow us down when we jump, which can be a bit of a jarring thing. But that's not an issue. And right now, we're getting very long in this video. I do apologise, but we're going to quickly add the sprint. And how are we going to do this? We're going to do shift or right trigger, maybe? Or left trigger? We'll do left trigger on the control pad. By going to when controls left trigger logic and timing, or controls keyboard shift. So when this happens, movement properties, on land speed again, equals, now what is it? We've currently got it set to 2.5, we're going to set it to 5. Equals numbers, have we got 5? No, we have to create it, right? Values, oops. Numbers, is it on the next page? 5. Now, we've made an error in our thing because, look, it's working normally, but now when we press sprint, it's going to turn the movement to 5. But it's never going to slow it down again, as you can see. So this is our sprint speed. It's a lot faster. But even when I stop, it'll always be the sprint speed. And the reason why this is because at no point in this code do we ever switch the online speed back to 2.5, because this only ever happens once. And the reason why we don't want it in here, we don't want to keep resetting this because it can be a little bit clunky. It's not how you want to be coding. What you do want to do though is underneath this line, so underneath 7, we click 8, inset it, and we're going to do when. Now this is a really cool command. It's under logic and timing again. It's on the second page though. And there's this else function. And what this means now is whenever we are not pressing the left trigger or shift, it will do this line. And obviously what we want to do is, so when we are not pressing sprint, we want the movement properties, on land speed to equal values, numbers, 2.5 should be on the second page, 2.5. And now, walking, little jump, and we've got a little bit of a sprint. We're going to do one quick more little thing before we actually get started on the stamina bar, which we'll do in the next episode. I'll record it straight after this just so it'll be up as soon as possible for you guys. Which, if you appreciate that, make sure to slap that like button, and also slap that subscribe if you're new to the channel. It really does help me out, and we're going to have a lot of fun making this. On a side note, we are also going to be, if you just search for PixelTwitch, if you're in Project Spark Beta right now, and you search for PixelTwitch on Player Created, this level plus this code will be up under PixelTwitch tutorial series. And we're going to basically split them up into big chunks. So the first one will be this basic movement, the next one will be when we add the sprint in, then we will add more saves later on. There'll be up to 5 available at any one time. So you can actually go in and just look through and experiment with what we've done and change stuff if you don't want to go from scratch like we have here, which should make things a little bit easier for you guys. Now, if we click on the brain, again, we've fixed all this. What I do want is a crosshair, but the default crosshair is ugly. So the way we get around this is we're going to put this just underneath the camera. For no particular reason. You can put this anywhere on the end line, but just because I like it to look quite neat. And we're going to do create interface, basically your screen stuff, display, and now we're going to display text because the default crosshair, you saw it, is that big clunky one. That's not very scary, and we want something a bit scary, so we're going to do text as a crosshair, new text. Text is under values, by the way, and then we're just going to do a full stop. It's going to be a little bit small, so what we're also going to do is under text, like if you've done text here, this will change and you've got modifiers. And on the modifier, what you can find is font size, and we're going to do extra large just to make it a big chunky dot in the center of the screen. And then modifiers again, and we go to screen location, and it will be in the center of the screen. Okay. Now we've got a very basic crosshair. It's a little bit lower than what it would be if it was a real crosshair, but because we're not doing it to be shooting at anything, it's not really that important. It's just a good point of reference for anybody who's actually playing the game, because we may add little features in where you need to be looking at an object or pointing at an object, while you're doing a certain thing. So you always want to know where the center of your screen is, ideally. You can remove it if you like, but it's just something that I personally like to have in the game. And now before the end, it's been a long video, guys, I do apologise. I'm just going to go through all the code that we've done so far with you in slow motion, just so you can understand it. Okay, so you jump into a game. The first thing that happens is the game looks at this brain, and it sees once. So once, it will set our on-land speed to 2.5, because on-land speed equals 2.5. It will set our pace to 0.75, because pace equals 0.75. It will set our jump height to 0.5, because jump height equals 0.5. And then, at the same time, basically, it's all in the same frame, this, like in one of the 30 frames per second, it will set our screen to first-person camera. And then on that first-person camera, it will display a dot extra large in the center of our screen. You starting to understand how this is going? And then, sorry, I lost it a bit. When we move the left stick, or use WAS and D, we move. And we move at a certain speed because we set the on-land speed up here, and we set the pace up here. This is what is determining how fast we move. The game figures out which direction you're moving or looking or everything like that, so that's cool. And then we've got, when we press A or spacebar, we jump. Simple. We change the jump height up here under once, so it was set for life. Well, until we change it, that is. And then, most importantly, when we press the left trigger or shift, on-land speed equals 5. So, just figure something out. So, that means that we're basically going faster. And if it's not being pressed, on-land speed equals 2.5 if it's never been pressed. Which means, I added an extra line in here. We no longer need this top line. So we'll just control copy this, just to be clean. Control V and Control C and copy and paste all work. Then we can delete this line. We shouldn't need that line because on the else statement we actually set it, and because this will happen in the first frame, that should be fine. So if we play it again, it should work just like expected. Walking, sprinting, walking. So this is one of the things that you want to try and avoid doing in your games and in your brains. You don't want to be overdoing certain aspects. And yeah, that's the second episode of the Project Spark tutorial series, and we have basically learned how to make some decent, slow, first-person, simple movement. In the next episode, we will be looking at making a stamina bar and adding sprint, and then we will go on to making some sexy torchlight, I think, some nice dark levels. We'll turn the level dark and we'll start working with attaching some items to our character. Anyway, guys, like I said, if you're new to the channel, don't forget to slap that subscribe button for some more PC gaming goodness and to like this video if you like this video. I'm Pixel. I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.